Yo, Chris, what's up, man? How's it going, bro?
Adam, man, how are we feeling today? How are we feeling? Big weekend, probably one of the craziest weekends we've had. I think news-wise, this was probably yesterday was the single biggest news day for crypto basically ever. What are your thoughts, man? How are we feeling?
I don't, it's funny. Like that's what everybody was saying. I don't know. It's funny because like nothing. It didn't actually happen, right? It's like the ETF didn't actually get approved, right? So I don't know. Part of me is like, was it really a big thing, or was it this idea of it being a big thing, right? So obviously everybody went crazy bullish, right? Hearing that, I mean, it was basically one dude who tweeted out, "Hey, I've changed my the percentage that odds of the ETF getting approved from whatever 25% to 75%, right?" And does he have insider info? Like, probably. But just the news of the news is like that's the crypto space, right? It's like you see something like that, and it's like, oh, um, is it should we be this bullish? Like, I don't know. I don't know what your feeling was on it. Hearing the news, what was your feel?
Yeah, I think it was definitely more of like a signal of a change. I think we talked about it last week how, Trump really came out and supported crypto, and that was kind of like a monumental moment. We've never had like a pro crypto main presidential candidate like that before that had so much influence. And then this is kind of like the fallout from there. And it was just really, really funny. Like I said last week, this all started kind of just from Trump's NFT basically, because that led him to the NFT event, which led him to the speech, which now led almost like the entire Democratic Party to basically, it seems like, flip the script and become super bullish on the industry, just so that they can save some face and not lose a ton of votership throughout the country. So just a funny turn of events that whoever his staffer that told him that he should go ahead with the NFT merchandise basically almost could have changed the fate of the industry, at least in the short term.
That's so funny. It's really funny and crazy that may be the catalyst. Like, and I don't disagree. Like that video from one of the D gods who made that video, asking him, do you support crypto at basically a crypto event? Like I knew it was. I figured it was the crypto event for the NFT holders because I saw, Frank was tweeting about it and Frank was going to go. And I knew a bunch of people. Actually, I know the guy who has like the super rare gold Trump who won it during the initial the very, very first drop that Trump did. He actually pulled like the rarest one. And my texts with him were kind of hilarious because at the early stages, dude, he had like, 20 ETH offers for that thing. And I was like, bro, you're not going to sell that thing? He's like, no, man, no way. I'm diamond handed this. And I was like, bro, you're crazy. But you know what? It's people who have money can be crazy and risk on for that sort of stuff. Me, I would have paper handed it, but he was like, look at the main thing. He got like, to sit at the table with Trump, right? Because he has like the diamond Trump or the gold, Trump card or whatever. But you think about it, and that gets back to this, like, well, it's a utility NFT. And obviously great utility, but that is like to think that that's the real like true start of the bull run makes my head like spin. Like, how could you even predict this sort of stuff, right? That we would get a layering on of the Trump speech, which goes viral with him saying yes for Trump. Then all these like layers of Bitcoiners who are like, we're going to raise $100 million for Trump, right? So you get all this kind of groundswell. And then, so it kind of feels like we're moving into a bull cycle. And then you get this, ETF's going to get approved for Ethereum. And, you get I think it was, I want to say it was the biggest candle in Ethereum's history yesterday. Correct me. Am I wrong on that? Or did you track that?
I didn't check it myself, but as far as I know, that seemed to be the case. Basically added Solana's market cap in a single single candle, which I don't know if it says a ton about Ethereum or if it says a ton about
something
Solana.
about Solana.
But I mean, it's definitely saying something, that's for sure. And I think it came at such a critical time as well. The timeline was one of the most stressed I've ever seen it in my entire life.
Yeah.
There was just so much of a disconnect between we're so back or we are, you know, is it over or are we officially so back? So I think that kind of sealed the deal. It does seem after further research that we are officially back, Adam. So great news. The show goes on.
Yeah, and I was actually just in a space right before this, and we were talking about, well, is Solana going to be, the King L1, being the biggest outperformer in this cycle? And I have invited up Meta Wealth. I know I invited you through DMs, and you're welcome to come up on stage. Just raise your hand to come up and talk. The idea was to have a space about people building on Solana. And I did have, I mean, they haven't shown up, but I had like four teams kind of scheduled to come on and tell us about what's happening, because, in my view right now, the only thing you hear about on Solana is meme coins, right? And, I've been pretty involved in, that sector, just trying to figure out what's going on, how it trades. I've been big on Pump.Fun, figuring out how to lose money as quickly as possible on Pump.Fun, and it's been fun, no doubt, but just got completely destroyed. I mean, it is that whole. I think it's actually, I think Pump.Fun is ripe for getting disrupted, because what you see happen on the platform, if any of you haven't used it, is basically you get teams or individuals, groups of people who create a token. They then launch it and they buy all of the early supply, either just manually or with bots, and push it out. Hopefully get more people, like idiots like myself, to buy in. And then as it gets closer, to, fully vesting and going live, as it gets closer to that number, they simply dump all their tokens on the people who have bought in. And so it's like it's like a new rug meta. It's like they're just rugging in a different form, right? And I think there is kind of this possibility that somebody could come in, and I saw a platform launch the other day which maybe mixes that up a little bit, where you can get the early investors kind of are forced to hold through launch, which is one possibility. But I just think there are multitudes of possibilities to kind of mix up and change up that model. Obviously, for Pump.Fun, why would you mess with a good thing? I mean, they are just absolutely printing money over there. But it feels like, there's only so many times you can get rugged, and I've been rugged 30 or 40 times over there, right? I mean, it's just like, it's endless. I can't even say as I've had a winner on Pump.Fun, other than ones where I got in and just sold out pre-launch. But Chris, I don't know if you've had a different experience or been able to pull some winners on Pump.Fun, but it seems just like rug fest over there.
Adam, you were actually like one of the earliest people that I saw on there. You were there really, really early. That was kind of, that was the glory when there was only, maybe 10 tokens getting launched an hour instead of like 2,000. So you actually had some time to kind of look through everything. Not everything was an immediate scam.
Yeah.
People were really kind of getting familiar with the platform in its earliest days. And I think that was like obviously a much more fair kind of battleground compared to what we see today.
Yeah.
But I think that the innovation in itself, people always put so much, the industry always put so much emphasis on who can launch these tokens. And it was so gate kept. And, for really trying to tokenize everything from ideas to memes to physical objects and everything in between, this was really kind of like a critical step in bringing that vision to a reality. So even though it's a pretty funny innovation and just kind of like seems like such a toy to especially anyone outside, like, oh my God, they're literally just launching a token for everything that they can think of and pressing send.
Exactly.
But the real innovation is just, allowing users to kind of create a token without any development experience and bringing their ideas to life and be able to kind of foster and grow community from that out without having the frictions of having to pay $25,000 or $50,000 for a developer. So
yeah,
that'll definitely expand across chains, and hopefully we can get some more creativity than just literally any thought that comes into someone's head and pressing enter, send it, and then rug the liquidity. But I mean, all in all, they're making a ton of money. It's probably the most used crypto product that we've seen, other than like stable coins, I would imagine.
yeah,
Maybe some DeFi protocols, but the amount of users that's pushing through is crazy.
yeah. I mean, the
You
only
didn't
thing I
see,
can compare it to is like OpenSea, during the 21 bull run. I mean, just as far as use cases go, it's kind of that special. And I did talk with the developer behind it. He couldn't come on because obviously they've gone through some stuff over the last week. With that guy basically hijacking their site. But you think about it, and we always talk about in crypto, like, hey, how can you find users? How can you find use cases? How can you break through? And it's really hard. And they've taken what happened in 21, which was, if you guys remember, it was actually it was difficult. It was a challenge to launch an NFT project. And people who could do it made money almost it was basically, if you could do it, you made money. And this is kind of sped run that, where anybody can create a token. So it's about, you got to have people buy into the token, right? And so that just becomes, then it's ripe for, groups of people or individuals who have some money to just do it themselves and then rug on other people. So how do you kind of move on from that? What might be the next steps around that? Are pretty interesting. But I did want to invite or welcome MetaWealth up on stage. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you. And can you tell us a little bit about what you guys are building? You're muted.
Yeah, hey, sorry. I'm just stepping outside right now.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, so we are a real estate management platform. So we do wealth management with real estate, and that involves tokenizing properties and then selling, fractional bits to investors. We built our MVP on Ethereum, and we migrated to Solana this month. We've been active for about a year, so we've tokenized over 100 properties. Have been registered under Spanish law, so we can sell them as securities. And because Spain is an EU country, we can sell to pretty much everyone in Europe legally. And we've had really good success with that. Our 1-year milestone is investors from 26 countries, properties in Romania, Spain, Greece, and then we have France, Germany, and Italy coming up later this year. 300,000 USDC distributed in rent, and 30 million in properties under contract.
Very cool. We've had a ton of spaces about RWAs, and it's really, before the whole kind of meme cycle started, I was of the opinion that, wow, RWAs this might be the cycle for RWAs. It seems like the timing's right in a lot of ways. And we've seen it with, not Clubhouse, who does the Pokemon cards. And, we saw that kind of take off and actually begin working. Tell us a little bit about your thought process behind moving from Ethereum to Solana. Were you thinking about liquidity and you'd be able to access more kind of end users on Solana, or what was your thought process behind that?
Yeah, so I guess our first consideration is scaling. So Ethereum has a significant number of issues when it comes to RWAs. I would say the biggest reason might be the token extensions. They're really powerful. And I think this year we'll probably be able to actually just make an RWA standard where you can just toggle certain extensions on and off. Which will give lawmakers kind of like the clarity to regulate them in a way that makes it easier to onboard. So
wait, tell me, go into that a little bit. What are you talking about technically there?
So in property technology, there's a saying that about 60% of the innovation is compliance, and the first step to compliance is definition. So in the US, there is a bill, the Lummis-Gillibrand bill, in June of 22. which kind of try to define all things in crypto. And if the things don't have definitions, you can't make laws about them because there's no way to reference them within like the legal code. So having, a piece of code that's standardized and recognized by a legal body sets legal precedents for reference anywhere else in the world. So having a token standard for RWAs is actually a super beneficial thing. And with token extensions, you have things like KYC enforcement or soulbound tokens. And you can go in a little bit more about how KYC can still effectively remain anonymous on chain with DIDs or even like licensing solutions. But yeah, I think that's one of the key reasons we moved to Solana. I also think that decentralization, when compared to like a high throughput chain, Solana leads in that. Obviously, a lot of the developers and engineers that we're kind of talking with, we're talking about like Arbitrum or Polygon, but we're not really fans of L2s because of the centralization issue with them. And then, yeah, I mean, community is just huge on Solana. I think that everyone's more interconnected on Solana when it comes to, like supporting new things, growing pieces of the pie that exist on other chains and making it a little bit more homogenous in terms of investments in that stance.
How's it been? How did you select Spain? Because that's interesting to me. Because we working with Emblem Vault, what we do, we have this discussion a lot. Like, where's a friendly environment to set up shop? And how'd you pick Spain?
Yeah, so we've actually been targeting Spain for quite a long time. So our parent company is named Intero, but basically, yeah, one of our co-founders has about 25 years in real estate. So him and his entire family have been doing real estate across Canada and Europe for a number of years. And Spain has kind of set itself up to be the leader in prop tech. So utilizing connections and just a general forward-facing attitude of the Spanish
what was that you
government.
said? What kind of tech? I didn't hear that.
Prop tech, property technology.
Oh, prop tech. Okay, that's a new one for me. Nice.
Yeah, so pretty much all RWAs fall into prop tech.
Gotcha.
So yeah, they're really forward-facing, they're really friendly, and they're really open to new ideas. But I think the thing that kind of kicks it is that there are a bunch of other companies that use the same, like fractionalization model, the crowdsourcing model.
Yep.
Only it's just not based on chain, right? But the argument here is that, well, look, these two things are equatable. One's tangible and one's just, a representation of the deed. So there's really no like large logical leap when it comes to, approving them or recognizing them legally.
So are you guys actually, the company basically buys the properties and then you basically run it as a regular kind of business, renting it out and stuff, but then the distribution takes place through the blockchain and the tokens? Is that kind of the rough idea of how it works for you guys?
No, not exactly. So we're kind of a cross between Airbnb and Robinhood. So what we do is we have this network of developers, and they have an issue where they can't raise money, quickly or in large quantities, without having to go to like a bank or, go into their coffers and really just like scrounge for change. And these properties are, like 100 million euro projects. So it makes sense that they would want a bigger like market access. And then on the other side, you have real estate investors or just potential investors who thought about investing in real estate but have nowhere to begin. When I would say large entry barrier is capital. You need a significant amount of money to even buy a property. And then you have to renovate it, find, renters, find property managers, and that's just not a friendly way to invest. So most people don't even consider doing it, just because the labor involved, the mental labor, I would say. So we fix both these problems and act as an intermediary. So what ends up happening is how our ERC contracts are, is we have this token wrapper, which has the asset package. We tokenize a number of properties together in this one package, makes it easier, more lucrative for the developers, and just allows us to do a bigger raise for them, which also means more investors. Basically, this wrapper is a smart contract. So anytime someone wants to buy an asset token, which are priced at 100 USDC per, the money goes into the smart contract and they're issued an ERC20 token. Now the system will change on Solana. We'll be issuing an NFT just because it's a little bit easier and cheaper to mint on Solana. But the smart contract itself acts as a purchase agreement, and that's detailed in our SPV document. So it's legally recognized as a sale.
Wow. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around that. So basically you're connecting the end consumer with property owners, and for property owners, so you're basically doing some sort of funding. Is this for like renovations or just to get the property ready for rentals? Is that the idea?
So we kind of do two types of investments. One is for rental properties. So we buy the properties outright in bulk and then tokenize them.
Okay. Yep.
And then we distribute rent and bonuses through that. How that works is we have a property manager takes 5% of the rent. In the future, we'll have a governance system where people can select which property manager they want based on, like resumes and stuff like that. And then the other side of things is we invest in pre-construction assets. So what that means is we'll go to developers and we'll be like, hey, we'll fund the rest of this, or we'll fund a part of it in return for X amount of apartments or villas, which we then tokenize. And the plan is to exit those between, within 2 years for about 40% ROI, while keeping some of them to rent out. So we're trying to find a balance between high ROI. So the golden number in real estate is 20%. So 20% per year, which is almost unicorn status. So like 40% in 2 years, 1.5 years, somewhere around there, is really the sweet deal for a lot of the investors that we've been selling to and targeting.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Go ahead, William. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Adam. First off, thank you so much for having me on stage here. I saw Meta Wealth was in a space, and I just couldn't help myself but join. Been hanging out with Meta Wealth for a while now. They have a great little structure there, great business model there for tokenizing real estate. I guess I had a question for you though, Meta. So about the governance, you said that they could pick, obviously pick property managers. Does that extend to like renovations for the home too? So like if like, let's say there was like a proposal for like adding something to the house or like, remodeling something, would that apply?
Yeah, it would. So the kicker is there's actual people living in these apartments. So it has to be between rental contracts or if the renter wants something done. So I don't know how to really like structure that. Obviously, like this is such new ground that like I don't think anyone knows what they're doing. But when it comes to renovations, usually you want to do renovations to either fix a problem or raise the property value. And because they're apartments, you're kind of limited in what you can do. So it's either going to be material, fiber optic upgrades, or say like more energy efficient windows. Those are probably going to be like and digital appliances. So like dishwasher, fridge, washing machine, those types of upgrades. So it would be pretty minimal, and barring like an earthquake or like flooding. We don't have any ground floor apartments, so we don't have to worry really about flooding. But like barring like an earthquake or like really intense windstorms, I don't think there will be need for renovation. Mostly just because like how hard it would be to recuperate the costs of it, specifically with like the rent only properties. Now, obviously, in the future during this governance model, if the majority of holders vote to exit the property, then maybe there's a proposal to renovate it before exiting, or I don't know, a little bit bigger margin upon exit. But really, that's up to the governance. I think most people will vote no when it comes to like a renovation, just because it kind of goes against their interests.
Wow, no, you're spot on. Yeah,
go ahead,
sorry,
William,
go ahead. No, okay, cool. I was gonna say, yeah, Meta, you're spot on, dude. I mean, that's the reason I could see a renovation going through in terms of a proposal is obviously if you raise the property value, like that would hopefully or subsequently raise the fractional tokens you're holding associated with that property. Like would raise their value as well. So that'd be the hope, right? But obviously, when it comes to doing it in between rental contracts and navigating those muddy waters, it's definitely very difficult. I just wanted to also say I'm very happy you're building or you're switching to Solana, just because I'm very bullish on RWAs being on Solana. Just primarily in the financial sector mostly, but also real estate could work as well. Just like kind of how Anatoly really envisioned Solana to be. He said, I want this to be the next NASDAQ. I think that's going to come true. Like, I think we're going to see a lot of tokenized securities on Solana. Pretty much the entire stock market, or a large chunk of it, would be on Solana at some point. Maybe even Avalanche too, but that's a different story. I would say Solana definitely being like the prime, like the main beneficiary of all of that. So I just want to say congrats to you guys. I'm super pumped to see you building on Solana, dude, and can't wait to talk to you more in the DMs.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I absolutely agree. You already see a little bit of tokenized funds. So I think Nick, he's the head of institutional onboarding at the Solana Foundation, and he was telling us about a piece of BlackRock. I think 50 or 60 million is getting tokenized onto Solana pretty soon. So that's really cool. And then obviously, like, Maple's been around on Solana for a while. I think Centrifuge also has a Sol branch. So
yeah, I think they do too.
I think they tokenized Franklin Templeton something from them. So I mean, it's been around.
I think Franklin
for a while.
Templeton's on Stellar mostly, but I think they're on ETH now too as well, I believe.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I just haven't looked into more like the credit side of things, which I don't really understand, and I need to educate myself on that. But the tension's there, and it's coming.
You don't want to understand it, Meta. It's too confusing. Just trust me. Just don't bother. It's really weird.
Well, I guess that's one thing. I mean, like, it's interesting you chose kind of this route of almost construction or not rehab, but upgrading properties and stuff, where it can get really kind of almost confusing. Like, how do you kind of systematize that sort of thing, rather than just, hey, what we're going to do is we are going to, I don't know, we're going to buy apartment houses, right? And so we're going to buy those. So we have like a per unit cost. This is kind of what it can return, and it kind of returns that way. And then you can kind of figure out, okay, well, it's a loan for 30 years. It kind of just standardize stuff that then you could sell, and then it becomes like this mortgage security kind of thing where it's all kind of standardized. Before I jump to Chris, how did you make that call to not go with like kind of a more maybe standard route and go into something maybe a little bit, it seems more complex to me, but maybe I'm missing something. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think either is more complex than the other. I feel like it's more what you're more comfortable with. And obviously our co-founders were a little bit more comfortable with that at our current approach. I just think it's because he comes from like a line of developers, so it just makes more sense
Gotcha.
to deal with the developers rather than it's hard to bundle apartments in villas, especially like if you have different owners, because you each have to like reach an agreement with them individually as well. With developers, at least you can just buy like 17 to 30 apartments all at once, or fund them and then just pay them directly from the smart contract.
Yep.
So it makes their lives a little bit easier too, I would say, because they get that bulk payout and they get 20 less signatures to deal with, which I think is a win for everyone involved in the bureaucratic process of real estate.
Makes a lot of sense. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I think that it sounds incredible. Can you take us through kind of the financing and the actual ownership of where the property would actually lie? Say that you have a fund, I'm assuming you're financing some of these properties as well. So where's the deed actually lying? Is it in the smart contract that would be then held between you, but then fractionalized between basically the bank for financing and your fund LPs, or what kind of like financial structure do you have for a lot of these properties?
So yeah, you're kind of spot on. So there's actually two copies of the deed, one digital and one physical, right? And the physical one's held in escrow, and the smart contract is the digital one. It's legally recognized as the deed under the government of Spain. So what we can do is, because it's a smart contract, we can't tamper with it. It does what it's supposed to do. And there's a purchase agreement between whoever sends in the USDC and the ERC that's issued, the token that's issued that signifies ownership or fractional ownership. And in the pre-construction, it's not that you own the property, you own the right to the property. Until it's built, you don't own the property. And that's kind of like important legal language when it comes to this kind of consideration. More so in the fact that like, hey, it's hard to define as a security when it doesn't physically exist yet. So we're kind of talking more economy of things in that manner rather than RWAs, which is kind of a pain for me to explain. But yeah, so we have an app, a mobile app and a web app. And basically when you buy a property token, it gives you all the paperwork necessary with it. So I'll actually, I'll pin a video that I posted earlier today. And you can kind of see what that looks like. So right now we have 6 asset tokens up, which is a total of 101 tokenized apartments or villas. And our valuation is done by Colliers, which happens on a biannual basis. So that's really up to date and accurate. And then you have all your data there with it, and then you have your SPVs and PPLs.
And so there's a digital deed, and then that is held basically in an escrow or a multi-signature wallet. Where's that token held on your guys' end? Are you
it's
the holding company of the token, or
it's a smart contract?
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a locked smart contract that no one has access to. The only thing it does is it sends the USDC it gets to the developers, or it sends it to the bank, which then
but basically, I mean, you guys have, I'm assuming, like a legal entity in Spain that does like the paperwork and all this sort of stuff, right? So then that company then holds. They're the one that is able to hold contracts and stuff like that, right? Like that's how it works.
Yeah, so our parent company is it's headquartered in Ireland as an LLC. And then we have an SRL in Romania because we have properties there. And then we have an SPV in Spain. And they both act as legal entities to operate within each respective country. And then the SPV in Spain then issues the securities contract to all the other countries that we have tokenized properties in.
Gotcha. And so do you guys have to do, like, are you able to sell to American citizens, KYC, AML stuff, or is it not open to Americans?
It's not open to Americans.
Figured so.
Yet. We're working on it. It's hard.
Totally.
But obviously, you have things like Fundrise and Homebase DAO and Solana, which do operate legally under the SEC, right? So it's just harder coming in from overseas, I think. But the legislation in the US is looking a little bit better. You have, separate bills in Iowa and Ohio recognizing digital assets and tokenized properties as physical assets or just pure assets. So that's
Fit
cool.
21 also this week.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's Fit 21's like it's like I'm trying to explain it properly. It's kind of like a generic outline for digital asset regulation in America.
Oh my God.
It's in the House right now. Or it's hitting the House this week, I believe. Yeah, so I don't think the Senate's going to pass it though. I think the House will. The Senate probably won't, just because some Democrats. Yeah, some Democrats are highly against it.
Great.
Also, I think Biden would veto it. Frankly.
Oh, no, definitely. But there's also like, just like MetaWealth said, there's lots of states that are passing sensible like digital asset regulation. Like for instance, I live in Florida, and my state's passing like a ton of stuff, or they have a ton of stuff in the works right now. One of them is actually a bill recognizing DAOs as legal corporate entities and LLCs if you choose to do like that. So if you want to start up a DAO, it will be recognized as a legal corporation here in Florida.
That's awesome. It's funny, like, just to give people an idea, if people are like, well, real estate, how does this make sense? And, I mean, just at the most basic level, and why this is difficult from a legal standpoint is completely beyond me. It feels like the US just missed an epic win. They could have, if the blockchain space had moved rapidly in the US, like this would have been such a home run win. There was a company a few years ago, which basically fractionalized collectibles. So I can't even remember what it was called. It was this little app, and they went through this big process of like whatever. It was Michael Jordan's, basketball shoes, right? And they sold for $80,000, and you could buy a share of those, and they were tradable on the app and all this sort of stuff. And this company, I think they probably went bankrupt, right? But that idea that why can't I buy a fraction of Airbnb in Lisbon? Like, why is that not possible? Like, why? Like, and the blockchain basically completely solves this from an ownership perspective. It's just working out the legal, structure, and to see that, good on Spain that they're actually like leaning into this a little bit, because it's just something that's so blatantly obvious as the way we need to move forward. Of course, you want to make sure that, the company in Spain isn't going to rug people and isn't doing fraud, but that's just fraud. That's got nothing to do with the blockchain, right? But distributing the money and distributing payments through blockchain is just like, it's a complete no brainer. Let's go to Chris, and then we'll go to Rooney's.
Yeah, just take us through some of maybe the conversations you have with maybe investors or kind of onlookers. Obviously, what you're building is completely clear to people like us, but definitely foreign real estate investment is probably one of the toughest kind of sells, just because you're selling to investors that aren't familiar with the area, whatever it may be. And like Adam kind of mentioned, there's a ton of just, really shady practices abroad. And then so kind of adding a token to it, I imagine it's a little bit of a tougher sell. What is just kind of some feedback that you've gotten, or how do some of those conversations go? Seems a little bit difficult, but obviously you're pushing in the frontier and you're kind of making a ton of progress. So interested to see how your experience has been.
Yeah, so that's kind of a funny question to me. Okay, so like we started our pivot into Web3 when I came onto the team in November. Funnily enough, it was more like, so the company's been targeting, Web2 and traditional finance investors since we started, just leveraging the technology. So we've been more Web2 than anything else, not even like Web 2.5. We're partnered with Transact for onboarding funds, which is really helpful because like in our app, there's just an option to pay in, like euro and the pound, Czech francs, obviously the Romanian leu, and USDC via ERC20. And then now we'll be supporting, the Solana USDC. So a typical conversation wouldn't even mention that it's on blockchain unless it's like specifically asked. They just the sales language that our sales team uses is just saying like, hey, we're selling these in fractional bits, which I find that when talking to traditional finance investors, it's much easier to simplify some of these bigger concepts until they like start, like building up their like knowledge base. So instead of blockchain, say public ledger, where it's immutable, but it's a public ledger. So you can see what everything's happening. And then the user interface with custodial wallets obviously makes a lot of sense for Web2 users. So I've been going on that. For the Web3 front, so I'm a crypto native. I've been in crypto professionally since 2018 now, but I've been in crypto for a little bit longer than that. So I can identify the problems that, lots of crypto natives and CT would kind of find with investing in real estate. And, part of the challenge is that like off ramping is really hard, finding properties really hard, and like property returns are not attractive compared to the APRs that you're getting in crypto. So what ended up happening is I came onto the team and I kind of analyzed all of this, and I kind of like looked at it as like, how do we get Web3 degens to make smart investments with the profits that we're making? And kind of arrived on this idea that, hey, like RWAs are just another illiquid version of the markets that kind of exist today. So today, if you were to go buy a property outright or, go put a down payment on it, you would get a mortgage, right? With really shitty terms, just because inflation. But if you were to renovate it and you get it reevaluated, then you can take a cash out refinance, and then take that extra cash and put it into another property, rinse and repeat until you just have infinite renters, whatever. And then like 10 years later, bam, you don't ever have to worry about anything, right? You just have to pay your property managers and you're good to go. you can't do that with fractionals right now just because the infrastructure doesn't exist. So instead now the conversations that I've been having in Web3 are like, hey, like I'd like to have a house, but I don't really care because I'm making, 1,000% on a meme coin a day, right? Like that's just not attractive. So then my next compromise was like, hey, what if you could collateralize your tokens, your fractional tokens, while still getting like rental benefits, bonuses, ROI, and then just take a loan out on it and, use that 70% LTV to go, make some more plays on meme coins. And if ever you feel like exiting, you just unstake it and sell it on the secondary market. Obviously, secondary markets don't exist that much for RWAs too. So yeah, like 8 pieces of infrastructure need to be built. But that's kind of my thought process. So we're going to be building a unified liquidity layer for all RWAs. And then after that, we'll be building a RWA secondary marketplace. And then somewhere in between, there's going to be, we're going to try to standardize the RWA standard on Solana using token extensions. So that'll probably evolve into like an RWA launchpad, and yeah, combine that with the marketplace. So
very cool. Lots to build there, bro. Lots to build. Bro, this shit is, look, man, this shit is hard, right? You obviously know that. We know this. This stuff is hard and takes years to build. That's why when people are like, oh, RWAs, I mean, I've literally had people be like, RWAs are stupid. And I'm like, bro, and they won't work. They've already put the nail in the coffin, like, oh, it's bad. It doesn't work. I'm like, bro, the tech hasn't even like got there. Like we're still miles away in a lot of sense. And one quick question before I go to Rooney's. Do you guys, for people who are meeting you from like the Web2 world, do you basically hold their keys for them? You kind of create their own wallet, or do you force them to do like self-custody wallets and stuff from the get-go?
Yeah, so we do have a custodial wallet solution. So we partnered with Portals for our Solana migration. So we will move all their funds and tokens over. That's fine. TradFi investors don't really care about ROI as much as, just seeing the portfolio value go up. But I think in their minds that you can, collateralize the portfolio itself instead of the individual things and utilize them in DeFi. I think they don't have a concept of DeFi. So yeah, that's kind of what we do. Yeah, we do hold their keys for them because it's safer. 100%. It is just safer.
Yep.
And yeah, it's complicated. No one wants to deal with that. Like onboarding is really hard into Web3. Obviously, we write a lot about Web3. So if they want to learn, the educational resources are there. Our sales team's really hands-on with these guys, and they're smart. They understand crypto. They understand that we are a crypto-based company. It's just, do they have the time to dedicate to learn that outside of their, like investments and businesses and stuff like that. So.
Awesome. Let's go to
Adam. Real quick, sorry.
Yeah,
just next time someone tells you that RWAs are stupid, just ask them if they think Citibank, Bank of America, JP Morgan, and BlackRock are dumb.
No, bro. I get it, man. I actually think it's genius in a way that most of us, even in the space, haven't even appreciated yet. This idea of liquidity, of ownership is, I use the thing like a coffee shop. Why can't I invest in a coffee shop in Dubai, right? Why is there any friction to that at all, right? It just,
they're already using stable coins too, like they're already using RWAs.
Yeah.
If you have stable coins that you're using an RWA. Like I'm just telling you right now, if you own any USDT or USDC, or you are involved in the RWA ecosystem.
Exactly. I mean, and it comes almost full circle. Like when I entered the crypto space in 2016 with the ICO boom, and yes, 99% of ICOs were scams and all this sort of stuff. But the idea of it, where you can crowdfund a global community and onboard people through crypto into this way of ownership, like that idea is 100% completely valid, right? And getting there from a legal standpoint where it's safe and you're not getting rugged and stuff. I mean, there'll always be rugs. There's no getting away from rugs at all. It's impossible. People are scammers, and those people should be put in jail, right? But the idea that if I have a business I can crowdfund globally through crypto, I mean, that idea is 100% valid. Let's go to Rooney's. What's up, man?
Oh, hi guys. This is Dr. Pop again. I'm a bit of an entrepreneur myself. I'm very fascinated by RWAs, but I've been looking at an emerging market. It's called RWEs. Now, those are real world encampments. Okay, so we're gonna tokenize encampments, and we're gonna do it. We're gonna tokenize it on Chuck E. Cheese coins.
Can we tokenize Rooney's tent under the
Bro, I
bridge?
just spit my coffee out.
if we encampments that are at the side of the street in LA, is there any way we can tokenize those and then run them as Airbnbs? Is that possible?
It's an emerging market. You guys should look into it because there's a lot of possibilities there. And I ask myself a lot of the same questions that you were just saying. It's like, how do we trick these crypto bros into investing into something like this? This real. So look into it. It's an emerging market. It's RWEs. Okay, it's really nice. There's we should hook up because there's a lot of possibilities there.
Pensive Chepe says we need to tokenize the homeless. Tokenize Skid Row. Some of the comments. Let's go to Pixel Boy. What's up, man?
Hey, Adam, how's it going?
Good, man. Good. Long time no talk, man. How you doing?
Yeah, it's been a minute. Yeah, overall good. Working on a lot of different Web3 and digital asset projects, but can't really talk about them. They've been short term. But in conversation with this, what made me think was I was involved with another project that was out of Portugal and Switzerland, and it was property investment where they buy it and they can buy USD and Swiss francs and euros and Bitcoin and ETH, and then So I won't give the name of the company, so I won't get them in trouble. But basically what happens, they tried to work with a U.S. investor.
Yep.
And how they work is as they're building the property, they give you 5% interest a year. This was before the rate hike. So this was, 2 years ago. And I'm sure they've upped, the interest rate. So it's more favorable. But when they tried to work with this U.S. investor and they talked to their lawyers, the SEC came in and said, well, if you're paying them 5% a year, then now it's considered a security. Yeah. And I'm like, what the fuck? They're trying to do the right thing. It's trying to incentivize them to build quickly. So they said, we can get it done in 15, 18 months. And if we're late, we're going to pay you for it, which sounds cool and fine. And they're like, well, now for all U.S. investors, we can't give you this. But for everybody else in the world, that's legit, we can work with you. And so, I really applaud you guys for what you're doing and, just up for learning more. So that was basically it. Just wanted to share that bit and, we can catch up on other fronts later.
Sure, thanks. Man. Yeah. I think, my personal, belief is that the entire securities kind of infrastructure needs to be redone, right? It's like, sure, call them. That's great. Their securities, great. Now make it so I can spin up a security in 15 minutes. Like, let's do that. Right. That's my current feeling. Like the entire idea that securities just means you have to be a decamillionaire to set up securities is stupid. Well,
I think that, and along what you're saying, they fractionalized art over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
They didn't do it digitally. It's not called a security. But as soon as we tried to do it on the blockchain, they're like, oh, now that's a security. You're like, we've just modernized it and made it more fair and more equitable for everybody.
Yep.
And so why isn't the old model of security? Why is this new model of security?
Yeah. To be fair, that rule, the Howey test is based on oranges. So there's a lot being said there.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, we all agree. Everybody in the crypto space understands this. It's like we've tried to skirt around it. What they need to do is just throw it in the garbage and come up with a new set of rules, right? And of course, you don't want people stealing from people. But the idea that, why can't a person who wants to spin up a coffee shop can't sell securities for that coffee shop and not be so burdened that it becomes impossible and only the big boys can play in it? Why can't the small boys play in it? And why can't that just unlock a tremendous amount of investment and movement? Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Meta Wealth. I'm sure this is where you live, so I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts.
Yeah,
on it.
Honestly, yeah, it is kind of it sucks. But this is like where the power of crypto is, right? Like it's not just like the tokenization of things; it's a crowdfunding of things. It's like being able to democratize access to it.
Exactly.
And I think that's one of the harder things to do. Obviously, you have to consider like the geopolitics of like doing it internationally. Like China bans crypto at the bear, so like the yuan doesn't lose value, right? Like it doesn't leave through crypto, it doesn't leave through Bitcoin. So you have like other external factors like that, which suck for regular people because you don't really get to choose. For the majority of your life, you don't get to choose which currency you use, right? Because it's dictated by where you're born, where you grow up, because you don't have any autonomy until you're at least 18 or 16 or whatever, right? So like in that time, you're already kind of like locked into this like financial dogma, which is really hard to break out of. In the West, financial education is garbage. People in my generation do not know how to invest. They don't care about investing because they grew up looking at investments as something like so far out of their reach, which is tragic, right? So like the first stage to all of this is educating them to speak up about financials. I think the current generation of lawmakers and politicians are also deaf to that because they got old not hearing financial complaints from our generation. They grew old hearing financial complaints from their kids, right? Yeah. So you have to consider these two major factors: the geopolitics and the generational differences in like financial education. But then you also have like the rise of like intellectual property, which is popularized in NFTs, and that's kind of the power of crypto. Is like you get to skip the VC stage, right? If you have a good enough idea, if you can build a community around it, then you can get the money you need. And like crowdfunding isn't new. Like indie games, the Wave pilot, the live translator thing that was out like 10 years ago before ChatGPT killed them. Stuff like that. Like cool stuff was crowdfunded. I just think it's access, right? It's like the fervor and the cult like mentality that you can whip up by rallying a bunch of financially illiterate people. You look at GameStop and it's like 7 hedge funds. Like,
yep,
yeah, it's there, and it's why BlackRock's moving into the space, right? Because they realize like, hey, we have the largest real estate, fund in the world, but it's illiquid. So let's tokenize it, make it liquid.
Totally. And I mean, I have experience, Web 2 crowdfunding from my wife's soap company here, where we did kind of crowdfunding back in the old days. I don't know what it was, Kickstarter, or whichever platform we used back in the day. But it always missed like people just want, in a lot of ways, they want ownership, right? They want ownership. They don't want to necessarily just get, a bunch of soap. They want to actually take part in ownership of this company. Right. And I think, that's part of the promise of crypto. But go ahead, William.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adam. I was going to just totally agree with Meta here. Like what blockchain allows for is direct capital formation. Like you just basically skirt all of the middlemen and all of these like really mundane processes and expensive processes. And you just get to direct capital formation, which I think is what NFTs really showed. Yep. It's that, hey, listen, if I have a like startup idea and you want to fund it, buy this NFT for me. That represents your, ownership or your investment into my startup. It's like it's really like just bringing up startup capital, and again, just making it more direct for those end users or for anyone in the world who wants to invest in your idea, thinking it might go somewhere. And I was trying to explain this to someone. I recently went to the beach, and I was talking to some random guy at the beach, and we're like drinking beers and whatnot. And he thinks that like blockchain's a scam and whatnot. So I was like basically explaining to him like, hey, listen, so how when you send me money right now, how it takes a while and it costs a lot of money. Like imagine if you could do it like in a more direct fashion and instantaneously and super cheap. And he's like, oh, that sounds cool. And I'm like, yeah, look up Solana.
Well, welcome to blockchain.
I just look up Solana. You just totally agreed with my idea. And he's like, yeah. What? No way, man. So, I mean, it's all about education, like Meta said. Like once people start really learning like what this technology is, and once banks really start adopting it, I think you're going to see a crazy mass adoption happen where like Bank of America is going to update their app one day. And you're going to like look at your phone and it's going to say, hey, listen, all your digital dollars, they're now USDC. They're now stable coins. And all your bank account's now a wallet. So have fun.
Yep. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, like, I think we kind of grew up around non-blockchain based NFTs. Come on, like game skins. Like, come on, this looks an NFT, right? Like your CS:GO skins, your Dota skins, your RuneScape path, your Dota skins. You know, they were all NFTs before NFTs existed, right? So, like, conceptually, it's there. I think we're just used to seeing it a different way. And, you know, when you explain it from a different perspective without using crypto or NFTs, I think people get it. It makes sense. Like, we're kind of moving into this era of like where your digital people want digital collectibles over physical, which I think is more there's more opportunities there for that. I think like being able to tokenize things gives it that competitive edge because obviously you're always going to need to link the physical and the digital together, right? It just makes sense. So you know I think the narrative is already there. I think it just needs to translate a little bit harder. Um, so yeah, just a couple more years of pushing, and I think we're there. Once the social fly meta comes out, I think RWAs are in.
I love that that outlook. I would say we're more than a couple years. I still think in that way when I talk to people, you know, my normie friends who literally have zero clue of what's going on in the crypto space. You know, I just feel like with RWAs, perfect example. People have been thinking about RWAs for a decade, trying to make them happen, make them work. But there's so much infrastructure that needs to take place. And I appreciate you guys for building Meta. I appreciate you coming on stage, telling us about what you do. It's awesome to connect because the builders are what make it happen, right? And it'll be completely obvious in a decade. We'll be back on a space and William will be in like, yeah, remember back in the day. And it'll be completely obvious, right? But it all needs to be built, right? And you know, part of it is, you know, just the timing. Timing needs to be right. The market needs to be right. My 80-year-old mom doesn't have any idea why this would even take place. But like you said, my 17-year-old kid who's played Fortnite and Minecraft his entire life understands intuitively ownership of digital items. He understands the idea. He doesn't need to be convinced that he wants to own his skin, right? He gets it today. It's understood. The infrastructure just needs to be in place for all that stuff to kind of live and work, right? It's still very clunky. You know, all of us with our Web3 wallets and stuff like this, all of that needs to like just work, be seamless, be behind the scenes. I don't need to have to think about it. You know, so all that stuff needs to be built. So we still may be a decade away from that kind of dream. Or
I've always told people, Adam, that like no one's
Yeah.
going to download MetaMask.
No
I was
one's-
like,
no one.
you're smoking crystal meth if you think the blue collar worker in South Georgia is going to download MetaMask.
Bro,
like he's not going to.
The number of combos I've had with hardcore Bitcoin maxis about, you know, banging my seed phrase into a steel plate like makes me want to bang my head against a steel plate. It's like, bro, the world is not going to do that. We have to have better solutions, right? All from everything from wallets on down has to be better. Like I believe
this is why I think banks are really bringing that adoption. Like if like once like Bank of America makes like a custodial wallet and just like kind of like just puts it in front of customers.
Yes.
And says, hey, this is what you're doing now. I think that's where you see mass adoption, where it just kind of goes under the rug a little bit and no one really notices what's going on until it's already happened.
Exactly. I mean, all this sort of stuff, just like, you know, sign-ins or where I have a multi-sig wallet and it's invisible. It's okay. It's my brother, my wife, my mom and me all kind of collab on a multi-sig wallet. Nobody knows even how it works, but it's set up by Google and it works, right? Stuff like this that, you know, right now, it's literally in the process of being built, these social wallets and stuff like that. But all this stuff takes time. And I think, you know, living in the space, we get very short. Like, why isn't this already happened? But the fact of the matter is this stuff takes, you know, multi-decades usually to build out. And but anyway, I appreciate you guys joining the space. Meta, really appreciate you sharing your story and what you're building. Awesome. Everybody go give them a follow Meta Wealth. Awesome to see you building out what looks like a really, really solid RWA on Solana. It's awesome. I think it was wise to jump over to Solana. You've got all the eyeballs and attention over there. It's pretty awesome. For everybody who doesn't know, we host this space Tuesday through Thursday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. where we talk about everything cross-chain, from Bitcoin, ordinals, Ethereum, NFTs, you name it. We're a cross-chain NFT protocol. And we'll see you again tomorrow. I think we're going to do a meme coin space tomorrow. We're going to do some deep dive pump.fun stuff, talk a little bit more Solana tomorrow. Until then, everybody, thanks for joining and appreciate you.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. It was a great conversation. And I always love spaces like these because we get so much